I'm sure if you asked 10 different people what insane upside means, you'd get 10 different answers. But really, what we're talking about today, 4 players with insane upside that can legitimately win your leagues. We're talking about players that where they're being drafted, they have upside to absolutely crush that ADP. Players that may have a lot of risk, but you're drafting them in the later rounds, so it's mitigated. Where the upside could have them being drafted several rounds earlier next year, or guys that are going in the late second or early third round that next year end up being surefire first round picks. We don't want to draft them next year when they're drafted in the first round. We want to take them now in the second round or the third round, or get the guys in the 10th round that are going to be 6th rounders next year. That's what we're here to do. I'm Dave Loughran. Hit that thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment down below. Let's dive into it. Number 4, Alvin Kamara. This one's risky for obvious reasons, and I didn't say that all of these wouldn't be. Of course, crazy upside is going to oftentimes go hand in hand with risk. But it's totally possible that Alvin Kamara's suspension, if he receives one at all, doesn't even come in the 2022 season. In case you're just jumping into the fantasy waters and haven't been paying much attention, I get it. It's early August. Kamara caught a battery charge while he was in Las Vegas at a nightclub the day before the Pro Bowl back in February. I think they actually arrested him as he was leaving the Pro Bowl the very next day. But his court hearings keep getting pushed back. Most recently, his hearing got pushed back all the way to September 29th. He has one of the best defense attorneys out there, obviously. So it's looking like there's a decent to good chance that Kamara doesn't miss any games this season. The caveat, and there always is one, and I wouldn't pretend to know how this is going to play out, is the NFL said they're launching a private investigation into the incident. And who knows, maybe they'll issue some type of punishment before the case concludes in court. It seems unlikely, but who knows? Either way, Kamara's being drafted as the RB14 with an ADP of 25 right now. If he doesn't miss time this season, he could be the biggest steal in the draft. You're talking about a player who through his first 5 seasons has been that half-point PPR running back 3, 4, 12, 1, and 8. And last year as the RB8, he missed 4 games and was the RB5 in fantasy points per game. As a matter of fact, Kamara was 9th in fantasy points per game among all skill position players last year. He saw his highest touch count as a pro, but also a huge dip in receptions. Still, he was featured in this offense every week, as he should have been, and averaged 22.1 touches per game, behind only Derrick Henry and Najee Harris. And while there's more talent in New Orleans this year than there was last year, and it'll surely limit his touches a bit, it just means Kamara is going to have a whole lot more touchdown equity on a much better offense that scores a lot more points. So yeah, there's risk, but the upside here is monstrous if things play out in Kamara's favor. And it's looking right now like they might. He'd be a first round pick for sure. Worst case, 13th, 14th overall pick, who's currently being drafted in the 3rd round. Too much upside to pass up here, given how the legal process is just crawling along. Number 3, Javonte Williams. I love this guy. And most of the guys in this video aren't going to be early round picks like this, but I feel like we needed to talk about Williams because even at his ADP, he has a ton of upside. Think about this. I talked about him in a video about a month ago and described the thought process of a lot of the people who looked at Williams last year as a rookie and went, he's the guy, no doubt. And then they ignored the presence of an accomplished veteran in Melvin Gordon. They were then surprised by the 50-50 split and carry that thinking into the next season. I wasn't concerned about that a month ago, and I'm even less concerned about it now after seeing reports coming out of camp in Denver saying Williams and Gordon look like they're going to be in a 70-30 split favoring Williams. While Williams and Gordon finished as the RBs 17 and 18 respectively last year, separated by only 2 fantasy points, Williams was the better player, and all of the metrics prove it. He was 2nd in the league in missed tackles forced, which is nuts because he only forced 3 fewer tackles than Jonathan Taylor, and he had 129 fewer carries. He led the league in avoided tackles per attempt. He finished 7th in yards after contact per attempt. He was 7th in PFF's elusive rating. The list goes on. And it's not even like Gordon was bad in these categories. Williams was just better. He was also superior in yards per route run as a pass catcher. Now he has a real quarterback in Russell Wilson. He has a well above average offensive line, no more Vic Fangio, and the 6th shortest odds to be the highest scoring team in football, according to Vegas. Assuming Williams is the lead back in this new look Broncos offense, he's going to dominate in 2022. And a late 2nd round pick will end up looking like a steal at the end of the year. If you guys haven't checked out Underdog Fantasy yet, you are entirely missing out on probably the most fun format of fantasy football that is around right now. Underdog, best ball, fantasy. All you have to do is draft your teams. And then you sit back and cruise. And you get into some of these contests, like the puppy right now, which is $5 to enter with $1 million prize pool. Or dive into the Best Ball Mania 3, where there's $10 million in prizes. And even the regular season first place finisher gets $1 million. You can shit the bed in the playoffs. Doesn't matter. Still $1 million. Huge prize pools across the board over there at Underdog Fantasy. And you will get $100 sign up deposit bonus when you sign up using the promo code Stokastic, Stokastic, up to $100 sign up match deposit bonus when you sign up using the promo code Stokastic, Stokastic. Get in on some of these contests. It's awesome. There's no in-season management. There's no trades. There's just drafting your favorite teams. The drafts don't take long at all, and cruise to victory. Plus, free money is something you should take advantage of. Use the promo code underdogfantasy.com. We'll see you over there. Number 2, Gabriel Davis. Gabriel Davis is easily one of the most interesting, intriguing, confusing players coming into 2022. His first 2 regular season campaigns were modest in terms of production, but then he exploded in the AFC divisional round for 201 yards and 4 touchdowns. Count it, 4 on 8 receptions. It was one of the best postseason performances you're ever going to see, and that's not even hyperbole. But if you dig deeper into his regular season numbers, there's even more to get excited about. First off, Davis was 20th in red zone targets with 14, and he was 14th among all receivers. He was 17th in red zone touchdowns as well. And this should really excite you because through the first 12 games of the season, Davis only averaged 37% of the snaps for Buffalo, and he ran very limited routes. Then, over his final 4 games of the regular season, started playing almost 90% of snaps, had a 20% target share too, behind only Stephon Diggs. And if the postseason was any indication of what could be in store for Davis in year 3, it's hard to not get excited about the possibilities. This is a Bills team that attempted over 650 passes last season and was top 8 in both passing yards and passing touchdowns. And they have the shortest odds by a mile to be the highest scoring team in football this year. Emmanuel Sanders is gone. Cole Beasley's gone. And although Jamison Crowder was signed to fill the slot role, he just returned to practice, and it looks like Isaiah McKenzie could be threatening him for that full-time job anyway. And on a side note, at 167 ADP, I'm totally on board with grabbing Isaiah McKenzie as the last pick in my drafts. Actually, I think it's a great idea. There's no risk there at all. But as far as Davis goes, his role only continued to expand through the end of the regular season and into the postseason until the record-breaking eruption against the Chiefs in a game they somehow lost. He's a full-time player this year, no question about it. He's one who's been efficient with the playing time he's gotten before, even when limited. I can't wait to see what he can do as the Bills' number 2 receiver behind Diggs. And I love the upside in the mid-6th round as the 28th receiver off the board in one of the most high-octane, pass-heavy offenses in football. Number 1, Robert Woods. Brace yourself, friends. But I've got some points to make here. When I'm looking for an upside receiver who's being drafted in the later rounds and generally being ignored, this is what I want to see. Either a high-octane, pass-heavy offense where he's the number 3 option on paper, see Antonio Brown from last year, an ambiguous situation among receivers that creates a lot of uncertainty, or a team that might not be super pass-heavy, might not even be great, might be outright bad, actually, and may not be the most productive team overall, but has no proven commodities behind their wide receiver 1. See Brandon Cooks from last year, who was an absolute steal in the 8th round, but nobody felt comfortable because of his situation. Robert Woods fits more into that Brandon Cooks from last year mold. Yeah, he's 30 years old and he's coming off an ACL injury, which is why he's being drafted in the 9th and 10th rounds. But there is a real possibility that he's the clear number one in Tennessee this year. A.J. Brown's vacating over 8 targets per game. Julio Jones, despite a terrible season, is vacating another 5 looks per game. And while the Titans drafted Treylon Burks 18th overall, he hasn't played a single snap at the NFL level yet. And outside of Burks, you're looking at Nick Westbrook-Akina, Dez Fitzpatrick, and Austin Hooper. So if you're evaluating risk versus reward here, the risk is drafting a player who's already going to begin the season on your bench. That's where you're drafting him. And he ends up never getting back to his former self. That's the risk. Or he ends up being the wide receiver 2 because Burks excels in his rookie season. The end result, you miss on a 9th or 10th round pick. It doesn't even come close to ruining your season. And the entire range of players around that 9th and 10th round is obviously loaded with risk anyway. The reward is Woods ends up being the clear number one for the Titans. He rebounds back to his previous form, trusts his knee, and yeah, he's on a team that will always be run heavy with Derrick Henry in the backfield, but they have a slightly above average passer in Ryan Tannehill. And then Woods goes on to end up averaging around 7 targets per game, and you're getting him in the 9th or 10th. Woods was the wide receiver 18 in half-point PPR fantasy points per game last year before the injury, and he plans to be ready for week 1. Hell, he even said he'd play in the preseason if asked. So with all of the vacated targets in Tennessee and literally no proven receivers behind them on the depth chart, seriously, find one. Leave it in the tell me who. You won't find one. He is well worth the risk when you consider the potential upside in 2022. I had a lot of people telling me you can't trust Brandon Cooks. Look at the quarterbacks, Tyrod Taylor, Davis Mills. This team stinks. They won't move the football. And now he's going in the 5th round. Because if you're the number one and there's nobody else behind you, you still have to throw the football. And volume is king in fantasy football. As always, appreciate you guys watching. We'll catch you back here for the next one. Peace.